Welcome to another MedTech Gurus podcast, where we meet and discuss trending and educational topics that are important to today's medical technology sales and marketing professionals. Now, it doesn't matter if you're new to the space or if you're a seasoned medical sales and marketing professional. You all have come to the right place. You see, the medical technology world is ever changing, and MedTech Gurus will help you stay up to date by interviewing experts and opinion leaders. Now, we call them gurus, and they will bring you information, techniques, and strategies that are sure to help you enhance your knowledge and help you bring value to your customers and your company. Now, I'm Sylvester Harris, and I'm pleased to introduce your host for MedTech Gurus, Mr. Tom Hickey.
Hey, what's going on out there, Gurus? This is Tom Hickey, your host of MedTech Gurus, and welcome to episode number 279. Get ready for an incredible conversation. I sit down with Dr. Andrew Napier, CEO and founder of Intublade. His journey is nothing short of amazing, from being a battlefield medic in Afghanistan to an emergency physician, and now a MedTech entrepreneur shaking up the airway management industry. Dr. Napier saw firsthand the challenges of intubation in high-pressure situations, and instead of waiting for someone else to fix the problem, he built a solution himself. His innovation is transforming emergency care, making airway management faster, safer, and more reliable. We get into how to innovate under pressure, turning a big idea into reality, and why collaboration is key. You're not going to want to miss this episode. Dr. Napier's energy, insights, and no-nonsense approach to innovation will leave you inspired. But before we get into the episode, let's thank our sponsor, Accelerant Consulting. Gurus, GPOs, RPCs, IDNs. Gurus, GPOs, RPCs, IDNs. It's all so confusing. Where do you start? Let the experts at Accelerant Consulting guide you through today's complex healthcare market. Check them out at accelerantconsulting.com. That's EXCELERANT consulting.com, and do it today. Okay, Gurus, here it comes. Episode number 279. And remember, if you like what you hear, please subscribe, leave a review, and most importantly, tell a friend. Welcome, MedTech Gurus. Today, as I mentioned in the introduction, we have a fantastic guest with us, Dr. Andrew Napier, CEO and founder of Intublade. He's here to share his incredible journey and insights. Dr. Napier is a Purple Heart veteran, a board-certified emergency medical physician, and an innovator who has successfully transitioned from battlefield medic to MedTech entrepreneur. His groundbreaking work with Intublade is transforming airway management in emergency and clinical settings. Hey, Andrew, are you ready to be our guru?
Yeah. Hey, Tom. Thanks for having me. Fired up to be here.
We're very excited to have you. So tell us something fun or interesting about yourself or your family so we can get to know you a little better.
For sure. Take a step back. I think people may tend to expect this sort of straight-laced sort of doctor when they hear MedTech CEO, but, my background has been a little unpredictable. I'm from southeastern Kentucky. I served as an Army medic. I was in Afghanistan, patching up soldiers. Very unpredictable environments, a lot of strange conditions in that area, and that's really shaped how I've approached medicine. Being kind of fast, efficient, no room for fluff. A little fact about me, and I'm married. I've got two kids, 6 and 4. I live in Northern California. For me, I also outside of medicine, outside of entrepreneurship, I am a semi-competitive powerlifter. That's something I do in my free time. But I think there's something about that discipline of lifting heavy. It's the same mindset I bring to both, medicine and innovation. If you're not improving, you're falling behind. Outside of that, I also still as my background, maybe a little misleading. I am an avid outdoorsman. I do love to be outdoors. That comes from my time in Kentucky. I'm a hunter. Actually just came back from a hog hunt this past weekend. So I bagged a 175 pounder. So stacked that freezer full of boar meat, for the spring.
I love it. Yeah, I live in Michigan, and where I live, we have a ton of white-tailed deer. As a matter of fact, just before this recording, I had 7 of them walk by my office window, and sometimes I think they're just taking attendance to make sure they're at my desk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Andrew, looking at Intublade, and I've had some experience in emergency medicine products and anesthesia. It really seems like a revolutionary product. So perhaps you can start us at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about the moment or the experience that inspired you to create this technology.
Yeah, my time in Afghanistan really exposed me to a lot. As a medic, I got to see a lot of airway managements taking place inside of our forward surgical team. You saw the first crikes that were done on surgical airways on soldiers, unfortunately, into that environment. Really got me thinking. We at the time was that sort of creation of video laryngoscopy. We saw the first products come out. But as an 18, 19-year-old, I was watching and seeing, blood was getting onto the lens, spit, vomit, and people were trying to intubate. They'd have to take this camera out, wipe it off. It just seemed kind of silly. They kept doing the same thing over and over. Sometimes they would go to kind of a DL, direct laryngoscopy, like an instrument from the early 1900s. To get the job done. It seemed a little backwards. When I was that age, I thought, hey, someone's going to come along and fix this. And obviously this is a huge failing point. It didn't happen. I saw the same thing happen in medical school. My time in residency, the same deal. I would physically have to remove that device and wipe it off. That's when I thought, this is crazy. I put in for sort of writing my patents and off hours myself from the ground up, and was like, I'm just going to take the bull by the horns.
Yeah, that's interesting, because watching emergency medical clinicians and providers and anesthesiologists, right? I'm aware of how important visualization is, but maybe just help us out for, at a high level. Why is visualization so important at this moment?
Those seconds matter. And every time that you are delaying, every time that you are denying that patient of oxygenation, you're increasing risk over a multitude of factors. You're increasing risk for strokes, heart attacks, brain death, everything across the board for delaying those intubations. So, that time that I was referring to, taking that device out, wiping it off, that's, again, you're denying that patient of oxygenation, and it's going to lead to poor outcomes.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then I'm kind of curious too, this innovation under pressure, as I call it, is something that you've lived through both in your battlefield experience and then in emergency rooms. How did this, kind of high stress environment, influence your approach to product development? Do you see any parallels with that as you try to bring new technology to the marketplace?
1,000%. This comes back to my time in the service. I'm very appreciative of that. It's a very, a formative time. I think that acronym they use, keep it simple, stupid, KISS, they would say that a lot to us in the Army. The same thing applies with anything that you do. You get into these high stress environments, these sort of grandiose plans that you have. You're going to send a flanking element this way, do this, do that. We're going to set these charges. We're going to do these things and attack the enemy. And then the bullets fly, right? And then that everything just kind of just devolves into chaos, right? And that's really what the ER has been, is controlled chaos. The same thing goes with this, complexity kills. If you can build to a point where you reach that, complexity, sure. But if you're denying that the sort of core principle, that core tenet of what you're trying to achieve, it's useless. It's pointless. That is something that, it's very fragile. It's brittle, overly complicated, but you just need a tool that's going to work every time. And that's the philosophy behind Intublade.
Yeah, that's really helpful, right? Because, you think about that. I think sometimes I've been involved with teams that they tend to spend a lot of time over engineering things and, it disrupts workflow, but it sounds like you're really trying to manage that workflow product interface. The right track here?
For sure. And I think that, I have an unfair advantage, from where I stand and to my vantage point. I am a physician. I have been on the front lines, as a medic in the Army. So I see that from multiple levels, as a first responder, as a board certified emergency medicine physician. I'm seeing this from different angles, and that's given me a huge advantage of over competition. You look at a lot of folks, not just in the video laryngoscopy space, but just in the medical device space, period. You've got people that are design, they went to school for design. They have not talked to anyone within the medical sphere. They create this nice looking device and they introduce it. You get the bean counters, the folks that are like, oh, this is cheaper, or XYZ. There's so many layers removed from actually what's going on. In the end of the day, patients suffer for that. And it infuriates me. It's something that's really driven me to, go forward with design, because I don't understand that paradigm. That needs to change.
And I think a lot of our gurus out there are probably shaking their heads yes at this point. And with, I mean, with your experience, you're very passionate about what you're doing. It sounds like you've got a great product and a great concept. But many of our gurus out there are innovators. So I'm kind of curious, in your opinion, how do you build this culture of innovation? And then maybe more importantly, how do you sustain that over time? Do you have any thoughts for us there?
Yeah, plenty that may not, set well with a lot of people. At the end of the day, it's not a soup kitchen. We're not here to provide handouts. The company has been about relentless execution. We hire people that aren't afraid to break things, to rebuild them better. This may not sit well with a lot of folks. I don't want egos. I don't want bureaucracy. If something's not working, we fix it. I am 100% going to that standpoint of, making choices, and that's really in the emergency department. For me, that's what I do time after time. And when I see something, I've got to make a decision. So I'm about action, and that's what kills me. You work for larger companies, you work for larger groups. There's this focus group. We've got this consultant. We've got this person. All these people, right? That so dumb. Doesn't make any sense to me. A to B. That's it. For us, we have a very open conversations every week. Have every person. We end up rounding the wagons. We talk about everything. We have our engineers that are giving advice to our marketing. Marketing is giving advice to engineers. Sales. Everyone is feeding into that same funnel to make a better product.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds like a really interesting, if you don't mind the term, cross-pollination here, right, of getting all those influences. And I imagine, there's probably, you have to set a few ground rules there in terms of checking your ego at the door, but I'm sure you get to a lot of respectful debates in some of those discussions, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I get humbled every single day. It's okay. And I want that. I want someone, we don't want sycophants. We don't want just yes men, right? We want people that are not afraid to speak their mind. And I think that's what drives innovation. I think that finding someone that just says yes to everything is going to lead to just a multitude of problems. You see that outside of this industry, anywhere else, but we see that especially into the startup space because that is reflected on day one.
Yeah, for sure. And then Andrew, getting a medical device from concept to market is really a complex and daunting process, really. So I'm wondering, what were some of your key challenges you faced along the way in developing Intublade, and how did you overcome them? Do you have a story or two for us there?
Yeah, plenty of stories. I think it's not for the faint of heart. Okay, and I think that for me, going back to that bureaucracy, it's that is part and parcel, unfortunately, where we stand. The regulatory hurdles have been brutal on time, resources, the allocations of which to, what pamphlet do I need to search, and what subsection of subsection am I supposed to follow for this? Just, it gets a little ridiculous, and I understand that at some point that was in place to help others, right? There's a reason that rules exist, but sometimes people just want to add rules to justify their own job, right? So that's been frustrating. Going from complete just nothing to have nothing to work with on the FDA front to make sure that it's both effective and safe. That was pretty difficult. Now, the fundraising was also another battle. The initial part, coming from my perspective, is that it can be difficult for folks to understand, where you're at and the space that you're developing. But of course, I think that adage also holds true that folks aren't investing in the company as so much as they are the person and the individual. I think that it's almost like speed dating and not being afraid to hit the nose, because there's going to be a lot of them. And I've got fellow founders. I have people that unfortunately have had companies fail. It's the egos. The egos get in the way. And I'll take 1,000 no's. I don't care. I know I'm driven with what I'm doing. I really believe in the mission that I have. And if someone else doesn't, fine, we'll move on. We'll find somebody else that's a better fit. I'm not going to take that personally, but you got to check the ego.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And then you touched on the FDA, and through that process, did you find them helpful, or were there challenges there to overcome? How did that process work for you?
Want to be careful here, helpful in what sense? Helpful in that someone that reviewed our application had never used a video laryngoscope before. Someone that was supposed to be the subject matter expert had zero idea about video laryngoscopy. There's a lot of frustrations and a lot of anger went into this because someone puts a statement out to us and for things that we're rejecting. and standing on the point of a subject matter expert, and they won't, not reviewing anything that you say. I had typed up a huge response, like over 20 references, working with, board certified anesthesiologists, critical care docs to help create this note in response to the FDA. And I get nothing. They don't read anything. Very frustrating. I understand why things are there to begin with, but there needs to be a massive overhaul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gotcha. So, but I guess the good news is you've gotten through that, and you're now on the market, right?
Yeah. I mean, to the waste of time and a lot of money, and I'm still a little bitter about that. That time could have been much better spent on developing a product and helping make something, for folks that need it. Not just checking off boxes for regulatory marks that have no effect on anyone. But that's another conversation.
Yeah, for sure. So, switching to your lens clearing technology, and your seamless app integration, these things seems like they're game changers. Can you walk us through a little bit about how these features work and enhance patient outcomes and support the frontline clinicians that you're talking about?
One of the biggest killers in intubation is a lost airway. If the scope, your vision gets soiled, you're blind. The clock is ticking. To our point earlier, our discussion earlier. I think that with this, it's a very very sensible approach. It's just like your windshield, your car windshield, getting mud gets thrown on it, right? I mean, you've got to have wipers, and there's got to be a spray to something to clean it off, right? So looking from, what can be the lowest tech solution possible that's going to be the most effective, having something that's in the microfluidics, that's where we stand. A very simplistic approach that does not bring that cost into play, that's effective. Combining that with no need for these extremely expensive and bulky screens. We want this intubation to go faster, to be safer, and be more reliable. And especially in these sort of high stake settings, these pre-hospital environments, we absolutely have to have those things that are there.
Yeah, that's helpful. So, I'm wondering in the sense of this technology, does it interface with a phone or some other sort of handheld to get that screen out of the way from a typical video laryngoscope?
Everything. We have a USB-C connection, so our device has the actual cable built in. So there's not a separate cable that you have to buy, like some of our competitors that charge customers almost $5,000 for their proprietary cable, which is just BS. But ours is built in. It's a USB-C connection. It goes into iOS devices, Android devices, and also within Windows. So for medics that have Toughbooks, GTACs. We have 3 native apps across those platforms. So, if you've got a phone, you've got a smart device, you can, with a USB-C connection, it's game on.
Mm-hmm. So with that hard connect, I'm thinking, you really actually get it around some of the need for cell service and some of the other necessities that if you get into a rural area. Is that correct?
Yeah, no internet connectivity, and as long as you have of course, the app installed onto the phone. But even if you don't have the app installed, you plug this in and it's going to light up our LEDs. They're very low power. Using any kind of USB-C output, very minimal energy draw. So some people have these sort of backup chargers on their person or available, and that still will enable you to intubate. You won't have the video component, of course, but you're still having that visualization. So you've got a DL in your pocket.
Yeah, I love that. So looking and doing my research, it appears that you've been gaining some traction with many EMS agencies and hospitals and other providers. Many of our gurus out there are having challenges with this. Would you maybe share some of your best practices and strategy for adoption and feedback from healthcare providers? Can you provide us some guidance here?
I think in today's day and age, across a lot of things, we show, don't tell. I think that, people see these PowerPoints and they see these slides. It really turns people off into the front line, myself included. If I'm going to get a new weapons platform in the Army, I don't want to see a PowerPoint about it. Take me to the range, right? So it's the same thing into this environment. Let people have hands-on. We're hitting up trade shows, and that's really in our sales team, going and physically knocking on doors believe it or not, once upon a time, we used to connect to people face to face. So, and it goes a long way. People still enjoy that, believe it or not. And I think like having people have hands-on, seeing you interacting with you, seeing that in person has just been, just made that domino fall. So, my advice would be to get out there. It doesn't matter. Our very first conference, my co-founder, Dave, and I, we kind of snuck in to one of the largest emergency medicine conferences, and we won't say how. And we got in, and like we didn't have money, that we paying for everything out of pocket, but snuck in. And when we snuck in, we went directly and found the right people. Hey, check this out, and like have it sitting in my back pocket. Right, put your hands on. What do you think about this? Getting feedback and really listening to customers early on as we develop and pivot. Now, we also took that advice to heart. We pivoted very early, and we were trying to do our own proprietary screens. We had a lot of grandiose ideas, but like getting that feedback and understanding the customer needs, again, like going into the ego thing, that understanding that things may change, be a little less rigid on some of the concepts, because like the customers will tell you what they want.
Yeah, I like that. And so at that point in time, did that give you any heartburn thinking, oh my word, we got to do a little bit of a redesign here? Or did you view that as, hey, this is great feedback and this is going to make us 100% better? What was the emotion then?
I'll tell you exactly when it happened. We were at a conference for the largest anesthesia conference, and one of the docs came up and he looks at it very briefly, and just curtly was like, "You guys should make an app for this," and just sets it down and walks away. And then so I thought about it, I'm like, but then like of course, we had discussed something very similarly along the way, but I was like, it's going to be very difficult to do this XYZ. But you get that feedback, and for someone in person, and I'm like, hey, I turned to Dave and my co, and I was like, we're building an app. To me, that's exciting. I like develop. I like to work on things like tinker. It was a new challenge, 1,000% the right call.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, Andrew, you touched a little bit on fundraising earlier, but I wanted to dive into that a little bit further, because many of our gurus out there have challenges sometimes with securing funding, especially early on. So what best practices might you share with, startups in terms of how do you get that funding? What's the best way to go out and find those types of investors that will be interested in your product or your technology? Can you provide us with any insights there?
Yeah, I mean, you want to play with the house's money, and like you want to be in that position to be funded, or everything stops. You can put your time in, which is what I was doing, working extra, putting all of the pennies I had to put into development of this device. But at some point, you're getting like negligible returns, right? So, my recommendation there is get points on the board. That's been my mantra, is that show use, show traction. Show something, get out and pitch, learn how to have a conversation, learn how to speak investors, take a look at a couple of books, like take a look at a couple of things. What does it get into their brain, into an investor? What are they looking for? What do you think that you can really help them, and why would they help you? Why? It's not just handouts. You've got to be able to show that. So, being a person, being able to communicate, right? I mean, it goes a long way. There's grants. There's a lot of things that are out there. I will caution with that. Again, the government's not here to save anyone. They're not here to save you. So, unless you have 2 years and a lot of time to put into R&D, very early on, it's very difficult. These SIBRs and things can be extremely problematic. That kind of goes into the bureaucracy funnel. But the pitch competitions, though, wide open. They're every single week. There's a new one. That's how I got started. That's exactly what I did. I would recommend that to anyone. Get out there, talk to co-founders, join these groups on LinkedIn, Facebook. Really understand what's going on, and take part.
Yeah, I'm curious because you mentioned something that was near and dear to my heart, and that's learn to speak what I call investor ease, right? Because I've seen founders that wanted 30 slides to tell me all about how wonderful their technology is and, all the research they did for the algorithms, but, get very minimal when they get to the business end of the transaction. Is that something that you had to evolve in? Did those pitch competitions help you focus that and teach you that investor ease concept?
For sure. My concept was initially that I thought everyone had this sort of engineering brain, and that's how like people would see like problem solution. but someone's problems are not your problems, and someone's solutions are not your solutions. Sometimes those exist in the same plane. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes you really got to tap into that different part of your brain to understand and really understand that that investor is likely not going to understand like what you're saying, and that's okay. What they want to see, right, is like you said, an investor ease. There's a really good book, Secrets of Sand Hill Road. That's something I would 1,000% recommend for folks to read. It really puts you into that mind of that investor to understand that it gets a little dry. There are components in that discuss about like taxes and XYZ that literally put me to sleep. But reading through that and understanding it, immensely helpful. Study, I won't say enemy, I don't want it to sound like adversarial, but understand that individual that's opposite of you. Put effort in, put, so much, 30 minutes in is going to put so much of a return on investment of your time.
Yeah, that's really good advice, because in a sense, you want to treat that investor like a customer, right? I mean, because they're going to put up their money, and, you wouldn't do that kind of research if you were going to make a presentation to an emergency department or to an anesthesia team, right? So you maybe do the same thing for an investor, correct?
I've seen that, for folks that have completely flipped that paradigm, and that's not helpful for anyone, to your point, understand your audience.
So Andrew, if I've got this right, I believe you and your team currently hold 3 patents with perhaps as many as 4 or 5 more pending. So what best practices can you share regarding intellectual property protection and innovation in MedTech? Can you tell us a little bit about, how you developed that?
Yeah, I mean, this may be a little bit more on the hot take side, but if someone, you got to understand the landscape and the folks that you're competing and going up against. If they like what you're doing, they're going to steal it. And good luck. Good luck with your time. Good luck with the money. Good luck with fighting that. It's going to happen. And it's a matter of time. For me, I wrote my patents, and from the get-go, I had no money. So I went to Google. I went to patents. I started reading patents. This is before ChatGPT, which just LLMs have made that just completely changed. But I was just studying, and I would write section by section after taking, I had 5 patents up that were similar, something into the medical device space. I'm this is how I write, this is how I understand. But for me, it was a thought process, and that helped me with the engineering side, right? So it's not only is it the IP, but it's helping me develop engineering, because I can see that in real time. I'm typing things out. It becomes like a playbook for me, right? And that's really where I saw the value in that. To the investor side, right? You want to be able to showcase your ability to obtain that intellectual property. Is that a crowded landscape? Are you going to be able to defend of what you have? That can go a lot of ways, but I think that very early, do it. Just write your own patent. Put a provisional patent in. It's not hard. It's really not hard to do. Type it up. Really think about it. Think about what you're doing and get that ball rolling early.
Oh, I love that. Doing some of that initial groundwork yourself, right? Because that was that's really interesting, because I'm sure it illuminated certain aspects to it, right? And I'm thinking,
for sure,
really got you into some critical thinking as well.
Yeah, you get into that flow state. I think that it's always chasing the muse, right? Trying to see where these ideas come from, because it will branch, and you'll sleep on it, and you'll think about it, you'll dream about it. You just become obsessed with this idea, and how can I help better explain these things? And so you're explaining your idea to the patent office, right? So you're to an examiner, and so I'm still breaking it down. I'm not talking to another doctor. I'm not talking to someone that's within healthcare. So then that also helps me with that language for investors.
That's fantastic. So Andrew, this really sounds like an exciting time for you and your team at Intublade. What does the future hold? Where are you going from here?
Sky's the limit. Once we made that switch, once we went and brought our platform online, that opens up the door for a lot within that artificial intelligence space. For us, it's right now. We have a lot of rudimentary things in place. We have a lot of things that are just at the baseline to be able to accomplish a few things into that spot. But our next gen systems, I'm presenting next month at the NVIDIA conference in San Jose, looking at real-time anatomical tagging, using augmented reality to help improve on training scenarios, to put masses in place and that kind of stuff to help practitioners get better. We're also on a broader scale looking at more hospital integrations. And this integration will go for things, understanding about a little bit more analytics about the patients that are involved, and also about the logistics. We're pulling in data points that right now of times of intubations, right? Dates, success or not, a lot of different variables that we can extract a lot of information out for practices, right? So that it also helps on the logistics side. So there's a lot. This is all going 100 miles an hour. Literally had a meeting about that this morning, and we're pushing the boundaries.
Oh, that's very exciting. So, Andrew, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge and thank you for the time that it took for you to prepare to be our guru today. If somebody wants to learn a little bit more, how do they do that? Is there a website? Are you on LinkedIn? How do we find out more about you and your team at Intublade?
We're everywhere. Intublade.com. Please check us out. It's intublade.com. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We're everywhere. And please reach out to us. You can reach out to me directly at andrew@intublade.com. We'd love to continue conversations with anyone and to help.
Oh, that's fantastic. So once again, Andrew, thank you so much for the time and insights today. We really appreciate you being our guru.
I appreciate it, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to MedTech Gurus. I am Sylvester Harris, your MC. If you want to learn more about Tom and his consulting services, you can go to www.pctmedical.com or email Tom at tom@pctmedical.com. Now, I can be reached at Sylvester Harris, that's SylvesterHarris 5048@gmail.com, and I'd be pleased to discuss any voiceover work that you may want for your company or broadcast. Hey, thanks so much for listening, and catch us on the next episode of MedTech Gurus.